But first up, the brilliant and wonderfully mad television professor who 30 years back introduced oodles of young Australians to science with his famous signature question, why is it so?
How do you do, ladies and gentlemen, and boys and girls? I am Julius Sumner Miller, and physics is my business, a phrase you have heard now some hundreds of times.
I rang up Julius Sumner Miller one day when I was in quantum, and I said, Professor Miller, I'd like you to come on to quantum for us. And quick as a flash, he said, how much will you pay me? And I said, gee, I don't know, we're the ABC, we've got no dough. How much do you want? And he said, no, I always let the buyer suggest the figure, and then I apply the multiplication factor between 2 and 10. And as it turned out, he didn't come on the show, but I'd always respected him beforehand. I thought he was just fabulous. He was deep. He was always accurate. He loved Chinese food. He was forthright, aggressive, brusque, perhaps a little scary.
Listen, then I'm going to slap that.
Slap it? Good.
What have I done?
Well, I don't know. You slapped it.
What have I done?
Slapped it?
I have done what?
I don't think JSM ever tried to deliberately harm or humiliate anybody. But he knew that if he pushed them far enough, almost certainly the answer would come out of them. And all he was trying to do was to get them to have that jump.
What's the word up there?
Enthusiasm.
Of course. Without it, we are dead.
I think he was a bit on the edge at times. No, I'm not saying he was certifiable, but he was certainly unusual.
Oh, yes, I find this place where I get the mostest light. The mostest light. The mostest. That's the superlative of most. I'm reciting something of Euclid. Beautiful, you should read it. Normal does not mean ordinary or commonplace. It means perpendicular in our language. But before we go to that, let's...
Oh, look, I remember that so clearly. My name is Peter Flower, and I was 12 years old when I appeared on the Julius Sumner Miller show.
Peter Flower.
Peter Flower. Peter Flower. Uh-huh.
Just watching the replay, which I'd never seen before, and seeing us two stand there, and he sounds exactly the same as what he sounded then, except I thought he had really long hair sticking out.
Oh, that's enough. Do you see, these things are risky, and you may indeed be in the lion's den. Does your mother know you're here?
Yes.
Yes, I'm glad of that.
He made the boring things you learn at school, he made them fun.
And he was nearly killed. I would not take another such shock for the Kingdom of France. Imagine that.
The poor old 1960s student looked pretty dumbfounded.
Well, we're going to do something about center of gravity. Do you know what we mean by center of gravity? Sort of, roughly, huh?
Yeah, explain very well.
But then you can't explain it, but then your knowledge is worthless.
He manufactured aggression. There's a sort of, you can tell it's manufactured, but it heightens the energy of what's being delivered.
You must be able to talk fluently about the subject, otherwise you don't know anything about it, okay?
Sumner Miller was a huge influence, I think, on all science communicators. His legacy is in the programs that followed. We are part of his legacy.
The Curiosity Show has done what Julius Sumner Miller wanted to do for many years. It inspired generations of people into following careers in science.
And Dr. Carl is very much like a modern Sumner Miller, isn't he?
Just right.
He'll take on any interesting question, but he's got the same enthusiasm, hasn't he? He probably doesn't have the hard edges that Sumner Miller had.
My wife engages in some imaginative adventures, and she put that together from turkey bones. Isn't that fantastic? Look at that.
I have to say, I cannot remember the turkey bone.
Look at that creature. Born out of her mind.
JSM knew that absolutely deep and accurate content was essential, but so was showmanship.
Roll up, tumble up anyway to see the old lady cook a pie.
He was known as the kitchen professor because he took it into the kitchen.
What about this new series you're going to be doing? What's going to be different about it?
Well, I'm just going to try to talk about physics in the kitchen. Physics in the oven, physics on the stove, physics in the refrigerator, physics at the sink.
He was doing exactly the right things to make science accessible to everybody.
Men, women, and children ages 4 to 94, and in all walks of life, as has been my other stuff. Sentence complete.
Well, I'm very lucky in that I have been appointed as the first and so far only Julius Sumner Miller Fellow, and I have this position at the University of Sydney, and so my job is to carry on his sacred legacy.
And we shall return another day with some more of the strange and wonderful things in nature.
The one and only Dr. Julius Sumner Miller. What else can you say? Other than to hell with the quality of those black and white pictures. If you ask me, the ABC should be rerunning all of his programs again in prime time. I'm glad, by the way, that Dr. Carr was able to tell us that JSM, as he fondly called the professor, loved Chinese food. One of those isolated but absolutely vital scientific facts that you just can't do without.